So good evening, guys. So this will be an online class. We will be dealing with modern India. So if you look at history, we cannot clearly pinpoint as to when does ancient history starts or ends, or when does medieval history starts or ends, or for that matter, when does modern Indian history starts. So for the academic purposes only, we can clearly say as to, like, from this year we'll consider it as modern Indian history. So we cannot clearly pinpoint as a date or an year and say this is where the modern Indian history starts. So for our purposes, we would take from the death of Aurangzeb in 1707 till 1947 as the modern Indian history. So within this modern Indian history, so if you look at the curve, so which is basically 1707 to 1947. So if you look at this 1707 to 1947, this goes up, the curve goes up like this. So somewhere here we have 1857. So here the power of the British or the English East India Company is increasing. Whereas starting from 1857 to 1947, the slope comes down and the power is decreasing. So this we call it as modern Indian history. So basically in this video, I'll be dealing mostly within modern India. I'll be mostly dealing with Indian national movement. So when I say Indian national movement, starting from say 1885 onwards, when the foundation of Indian National Congress was laid, that is where we call it as Indian national movement. So basically, we in these online sessions will be dealing with Indian national movement. Maybe in and around 7 to 8 classes, we will go from 1885 to 1947 and give ourselves the freedom, or India attains freedom. So Indian national movement. So when we say Indian national movement, what are the reasons for the rise of Indian national movement is very, very important. So why do we consider that from 1885 onwards the national movement in India started, or the independence movement in India started? So basically there are multiple reasons for the rise of Indian national movement. So the Indian national movement is both a response to the British colonial policies and reaction to the British colonial policies, or a result of British colonial policies. So they are both response or reaction to the British colonial policies. Many policies of British made Indians realize the true colors of British, because of which Indians reacted in a way so as to get the freedom to India. So if you look at what are the factors responsible for the rise of Indian nationalism ಅಂತಂದರೆ, the very first moment, the very first point, if you can notice here, it says realization of the colonial interests. So what are the colonial interests? So colonial interests were maximizing the profits, or converting India from a net exporter to a net importer. So earlier in the olden days, India was basically, we were exporting more, and our foreign exchange were at higher rate. But whereas post British occupation of India, our imports increased. So what was India a supplier become, we started importing. So Indians started to realize the true colors of British. So that made Indians react or revolt against the colonial powers. Second is political unification. So if you look at pre-colonial era of India, so Hyderabad, Junagadh, Mysore, so different provinces were ruled by different kings. So obviously there were rivalry between the kings. So India as a nation did not have, like, that unity did not exist. So there was fight between the provinces. But when Britishers occupied the entire Indian region, so they brought India under a common political administrative structure, so which brought unity, or the entire homogeneous, the physical structure of India was under homogeneous rule. So this was political unification. And the modern means of communication, with the advent of railways, and telegraph, etc., so Indians were able to communicate with each other, travel to different regions of India. So, and then one more thing, sir, introduction of English education. So if you look at, in the earlier days, the different people of different regions could not interact with each other. Whereas with the introduction of railways, they could travel all around the country, across the length and breadth of the country. They could meet different people. And when you meet people from different regions, obviously you need a common language. So English acted as the common language throughout the country. And sir, obviously, like say for example, when you're traveling from like say Bangalore to Delhi, you will not sit idle. Obviously, you'll talk with your co-passenger. So when you're talking with your co-passenger, you need a common language. So once you have a common language which is English, obviously you will share the happenings in your region. Like say Karnataka fellow shared what was happening in his region, the same way Madhya Pradesh fellow shared what was happening in his region, and the same way Delhi fellow shared. And when they exchanged these ideas, they found a common thing, that they were all exploited by the same fellow, which was the British. So this realization that they were all exploited under the common soul, or they were all ruled by the common person, and they were all exploited, and this made them realize that what was happening to their country. So modern means of communication and English may brought the people closer. And then press, obviously with the introduction of press, vernacular press also increased, and multiple newspapers were published. So once this multiple newspapers published not just what do you call it, the news, they even criticized the policies of the government, made people aware of their rights, made people aware how they were being exploited, and what was the main reason for their state, or what was the main reason for poverty. So press acted as a medium of both of education and enlightenment. And obviously Western education, so once Indians learned in Western education, obviously they were exposed to the ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity. So because of all of these things, what they experienced and what they learned from the West, the same was not being practiced in India. So they realized, for the betterment of India, or for if India has to progress further, we need to bring in these ideas. So to bring in these ideas, the Britishers were not implementing them. So they have to go or revolt against the British. So this brought them together. And then reactionary policies and racial arrogance of the rulers. So if you look at the the administrative policies of the British, so the lower levels were only filled by the Indians. The all the higher authorities or the higher posts were held by Britishers only. And even in the army, the Indian could not rise above Subedar. So all of these policies, like say Lytton's policy or even Vernacular Press Act, Gilbert Bill controversy, all of these policies made Indians realize the true colors of British. So now, sir, now that we know what were the reasons for the rise of Indian national movement, so what is Indian national movement? What were the, so if you look at modern India, so what is modern India? So from 1707 to 1947, and 1857 is the watershed year of Sipai Mutiny. But here we are dealing with Indian national movement. So and then rise of what are the factors reason for Indian national movement. So now if you look at the within this Indian national movement, that is from 1885 to 1947, we have three phases of national movement. The first phase is moderate phase. Now when we say moderate phase, so what do you mean by moderate? No, when you don't go to the extremes, but we call it as moderate phase. So in this phase, there were revolts, people protested, but in a moderate way. They did not question the authority of the British. They did not outrightly reject the British policies. They did not want to throw the British away from the country. But they expressed their displeasures. They vented out their anger. That is the moderate phase from 1885 to 1905. The beginning of Indian National Congress happens at 1885. And 1905, the Swadeshi movement or the anti-partition movement or the partition of Bengal issue, which we will see, and that is a moderate phase. Whereas extremist phase, so obviously when the moderate phase failed, extremists took over within the Congress. So that is from 1905, the Swadeshi movement, to 1918 or 1919, which we call it as Montego Chelmsford movement. So once this got over, then we call it as Gandhian era. Gandhi comes back from, so Gandhian era, that is introduction of Gandhi in the Indian national movement, and how from here Gandhi takes the path of non-violence and satyagraha to bring or to bring India freedom, or to take India to independence. That we will see. So these are the three phases of Indian national movement. So now, sir, so can we say, like, sir, was Indian National Congress, which was started in 1885, the first association to like to question the authority of the British. No, there were many associations before Indian National Congress also, which was like say Dadabhai Nauroji started East India Association, or Indian Association of Calcutta by Surendranath Banerjee, or Pune Sarvajanik Sabha by Mahadev Govinda Ranade. So many associations was formed, but Indian National Congress was the first pan-India association which was started. So now comes Indian National Congress in 1885. So in the year 1885, Indian National Congress was established, and its first session was held in Bombay at Gokuldas Tejpal Sanskrit Vidyalaya or college. It was presided by Umesh Chandra Banerjee, W.C. Banerjee, and it was attended by 72 delegates from all over India. So this was the first session of Indian National Congress. So when it comes to session of Indian National Congress, we need to remember two things. So it was basically conducted in a year, in the end of the year, let's say 28th or 29th of December. 28th or 29th of December for every year, the last 3 days, where people met, discussed the issues, and at the end submitted a petition to the government. And the second issue which we need to remember is, sir, whenever a session occurred in, every year they used to change the venue of the session in different regions, like say north, east, west, and south, or in the central provinces. But wherever the session occurs, the person from that area cannot become the president. This is a very, very important detail, because this was used in 1907, which led to Surat split, which is very, very important, which we'll see later when we go to 1907, how this rule was exploited, how this rule was used to make sure the Tilak did not become the president, and how this 1907 Surat split occurred. So that is very, very important. Different regions every year for the last 3 days, and a person from that region cannot become the president. So the first 4 sessions of Indian National Congress are very, very important. They can match the following, or they can ask in just as a statement. So first session in Bombay, W.C. Banerjee. Second session in Calcutta, Nauroji, Dadabhai Nauroji. And the third session in Madras, Tyabji. And the fourth session in Allahabad, George Yule. So Banerjee, Nauroji, Tyabji, and Yule. So these were the first 4 presidents of Indian National Congress. So now, very, very important theory, sir, which says that Indian National Congress was started as a safety valve by the Britishers only, because Indian National Congress was formed with the help of A.O. Hume, who was a retired civil servant. So this theory, safety valve theory, says that there was a rising discontentment among Indians against the British. So A.O. Hume, with support of Dufferin, started Indian National Congress as a safety valve to vent out the pressure. Rather than people coming onto the fields, coming onto the road and protesting, you keep Indian National Congress as a front organization where people meet and vent out their pressure at every year 3 days, and then they can go back. So this was said by A.O. Hume. But the supporting points which A.O. Hume gave for this safety valve theory, etc., are not that much convincing, which is not required basically for our prelims perspective, so we will not go into that. But as Bipin Chandra says, if A.O. Hume and Lord Dufferin wanted to use Indian National Congress for a safety valve, Indian National Congress used A.O. Hume as a lightning conductor, the catalyst which will pass on the process. So if Indian National Congress was started by Indians themselves, maybe the British would have suppressed it, or British would not have allowed it to prosper. So since there was one fellow from themselves, like from the British only, the A.O. Hume, so British did not oppose it. So that is what the theory says. So it is not safety valve. If they wanted to use Indian National Congress for safety valve, we used A.O. Hume as a lightning conductor. So now, since now that the organization of Congress is formed, so what are the aims and objectives of Congress? So first objective is democratic nationalist movement. So they wanted to give voice to the Indian national movement, when we say give a nationalist movement or for a democratic nationalist movement, so obviously it is like channel the energies, or channel the the discontent of the Indian people into proper way, so that to get reforms initiated from the British. First thing. Second thing, politicize and politically educate the people. So when they met for 3 days, they obviously criticize the British policies, explain to the people why and how they are poor, what are the reasons for their poverty, etc., etc. So politicize and educate the people, and then promote friendly relations among national workers from different parts of the country. So obviously, as I told earlier only, so it was conducted at different regions every year, and the person from that region cannot become president for that year. So obviously, different regions people met, and obviously it promoted a feeling of we are the national feeling among the people of the country, and then develop and propagate anti-colonial nationalist ideology. So obviously, when they criticized the policies and principles of the British government, obviously they propagated anti-colonial strategy, and then formulate and present popular demands before the government. So obviously, when they met for 3 days, they would criticize. They would, at the end of the day, they would chart out a memorandum or what were the reforms they expected from the British. They would write it down, and then they would go and present it to the British. So that is what they used to do. So now, which I earlier told, the Indian national movement, it is divided into three phases: moderate phase, extremist phase, and Gandhian era. So the era of moderates, 1885 to 1905. So who are the leaders of moderate era? Dadabhai Naoroji, Firoz Shah Mehta, Surendranath Banerjee, etc. They were all the believers of moderate ideology or moderate policies. So why do we call them as moderates? Sir, why do we call them as moderates, sir? Because they confine within to the confines of the law. So what is it that is they did not go against the law. So within the law you can protest, yes. So they used to protest. Within the law you can ask the government to bring in reforms, yes. They used to go and ask for reforms. So they did not break the law. So whatever they could do and how much ever they could protest within the boundaries of the law, they protested that much only. That is first thing. And then they had a belief that Britishers are basically good boys. So Britishers are here to develop India. Correct? But the problem is Britishers are not aware of what are the problems of Indians. So if we meet every year for 3 days and submit our memorandum to the British, they will understand it, then they'll bring in reforms. So that is what was their belief. And the third one, the methods they used was prayer, petition, and protest. So basically, first go and ask them, sir, please do something. Give it in writing. So if they don't listen to you, then do some protest. So three P's: prayer, petition, and protest. And then last thing what they felt is, because Britain had already got industrial revolution, etc., whether it's telegraph, communications, etc., already there, they thought that the connections with Britain were very very important for the development of India or the development of the nation. So this is what they thought. So basically, their ideology was don't break the law, do it within the law. First thing. Second thing is Britishers are basically good boys, but they don't know our problem. So if we tell them our problems are this is what we are facing, they'll surely correct it. How do you tell the Britishers what is your problem is? First make a prayer. If they don't listen, write it in writing, give it to them. Then if they don't listen to your writing also, they do some protest. This is what was the basic ideology of the moderates. So contributions of moderates. So what are the contributions of moderates? So contributions of moderates is like, obviously when we say that 1885 to 1905 was the moderate era and 1905 to 1919 was the extremist era, there are some drawbacks which we will see later. But what are the contributions of moderates? So the contributions of moderates is basically they made the economic critique, whether Dadabhai Naoroji's drain of wealth theory. So how they presented before the Indian people that what was the reasons for poverty of India and why basically there is no industrialization in India and all. They made sure that the people realize the true colors of colonial rule. And then they asked for constitutional reforms, like say for example increasing the age of civil services or conducting of examination both in India and England simultaneously. Or when this vernacular press act was there, so they asked for the freedom of press, etc. So these are the like the contributions of moderates. Then if you look at what is the evaluation, like say how do we evaluate them, like what was the real contribution of that time? Sir, basically sir, they represented the most progressive forces of that time. They were well educated, obviously, so everybody was a lawyer. They criticized the British economic policies. So they represented the progressive forces, Western educated, exposed to the modern thoughts. So they were the most progressive forces at that time. They were able to create wide national awakening. So when they met at different places, propagated the economic critique or like criticized the government policies, they were able to create, they were able to like enlighten the people or awaken the people as to what were their problems or what is the real root cause of that problem is. And then they train people in political work and popularize modern ideas, like say modern ideas of scientific thinking, Western education, fraternity, brotherhood, unity. So these were all propagated by them. And then what was it? Okay, the basically exploitative character of colonial rule, obviously, which we already discussed. Like when they met at every year for 3 days, they used to obviously criticize. Obviously, when they straight, they expose the basic, the hollowness of the shallowness of the British policies. So, but what are the drawback of this moderates and Conrad, which we already saw? Like say, for example, they used to meet for every year for 3 days only. So obviously they did not continue their work throughout the year. So when you meet for 3 days in a year, you're not going to get much. First thing. Second thing, as I already said, they represent the progressive forces. They were all lawyers, Western educated. But any mass movement, or if you want to, oppose the government, then it's a mass movement. So they did not involve the masses. Second thing, and then third thing, sir, the thing is, Britishers were not as good as they were thought. So what moderates thought that businesses are basically good boys and they're not aware. No, that is what that is that basic that the basic premise itself is wrong. So these were the drawbacks of moderates. So 1885 to 1905, moderates were continuing, and now comes an important event in the Indian history, sir, which is the partition of Bengal. So that Bengal at that time was a very huge province, and was densely populated also. And basically, Bengal at that time was the hotbed of Indian nationalism. So obviously, when one some area, is contributing more to Indian nationalism, or is creating more trouble to the British colonialism or to the British interests, obviously British would want to, like break that thing. So British came up with partition of Bengal. So basically, what is this partition of Bengal issue, sir? So in 1903, British announced that the Bengal as a whole is very big for them to administer. So they are going to partition the Bengal. So they said that we are going to partition the Bengal, and told that it will be divided into Bengal will be divided into Eastern Bengal and Western Bengal. Correct, sir? So Eastern Bengal would cut down Eastern Bengal and Assam, whereas Western part would contain this one. So what was the official reason is it is too big to administer. Basically, that was what the reason which they had given. It is too big to administer with a population. Correct. So what is it that they told? Two provinces, Bengal comprising of Western Bengal as well as the provinces of Bihar and Orissa. So the capital here would be Calcutta, whereas capital here will be Dhaka. This was the official reason which they told. But the real motive was this would become Muslim majority area and this would become a Hindu majority area. This would have capital at Dhaka to appease the Muslim majorities or the Muslim community, whereas this would have the Hindu majority. So and then this partition would make Bengalis minority within the Bengal. So as we can notice, the official agenda was something, but the hidden agenda was something else. So this was basically like the divide and rule principles of the British, where they would instigate one community against other, or minority versus majority, or one region against another, so that as divide and policy of divide and rule, they would get what they want. So as a policy of divide and rule, they divided this Bengal, the hotbed of Indian national movement, into West Bengal and East Bengal, making sure the national movement or the tide of national movement, what do you call it, goes off or goes down. So this was what the Swadeshi movement was. So when this was announced, obviously people revolted, and the Congress also opposed this. So Congress basically opposed this, and they revolted against the Swadeshi movement. So how did the people revolt against it, and what were the methods they adopted is very important here. So the moment this was announced that Bengal was going to be partitioned into two halves, obviously people gathered. Obviously people gathered and opposed the partition of Bengal. How they announced it? So through publication of newspapers, pamphlets, street plays, they opposed it. But the British government did not go back, and October 16, 1905, partition formally came into force. And when this thing formally came into force, obviously people were angry, and they decided to, that day will be observed as the day of mourning throughout Bengal. So what did the people do on this day of mourning, sir? On this day of mourning, people fasted, people fasted, bathed in Ganga, walked barefoot. They sang the song Amar Sonar Bangla, which later went on to become the national anthem of Bangladesh. They tied Rakis, that West Bengal and East Bengal people tied Rakis on each other's hands, saying that, we are united, you cannot divide us. The two halves of Bengal are united. So this is how people reacted and revolted. What was the Congress stand? When all of this was happening, what was the Congress? In the year 1905, Congress, under the presidency of Dadabhai Nauroji, no, not Dadabhai, 1906 is Dadabhai Nauroji, under 1905 Gopalakrishna Gokhale, in 1905 under the presidency of Gopalakrishna Gokhale, condemned the partition of Bengal, and it was decided to support anti-partition or Swadeshi movement in Bengal. So what is Swadeshi movement? So Swadeshi movement, it related Atma Shakti, whereas the burning of foreign goods, what do you call it? Burning of foreign goods coming out of foreign dominated education institutions, or total reliance on Atma Shakti or Swadeshi or Khadi. So this is what is Swadeshi movement. So how this Swadeshi movement went under the moderate phase, what made extremists, revolt against the methods adopted by moderates, or dissatisfied with the methods adopted by moderates. Why moderates and extremists had to clash with each other, whether Swadeshi movement succeeded, whether Bengal was united, or whether partition went on, and how these moderates and extremists got divided in the year 1907 through Surat split, that we will see in the next class. So here we end with Congress position and Swadeshi movement.